Happy Friday!
Hi all!
I'm Leslie,
And I'm Mariah.
and we are the faces behind Book Me Bite Me. And today we're going to share a little bit about our post that we didn't get to today, and just to be fully transparent. You know, sometimes life happens and you don't get to your reading, you don't get to your writing. If you're a university student, you may not get to your assignment. And what do? Do you give up, or do you push through and present something? So today is kind of our transparent moment to tell you we had life happen a lot this week, and we're full-time.
We're full-time employees,
Yeah.
full-time teachers, mothers, caretakers, and a cook on the side,
Yeah.
an aspiring cook on the side. So obviously, as I'm sure you have experienced as well, there's a lot to do in life, and reading is a part of that, and we value it. But what happens when you can't fit reading in, even though we highly recommend reading as much as you can when you can? So as Leslie was saying, this is our transparency post to share with you that we haven't gotten our materials read and written about this week, but we're still here persisting. And I think persistence is one of the strongest indicators of success, because you can be as intelligent and talented as you want to be, but persistence is also a big ingredient to success.
So one thing that we talked about this morning, we were having this conversation, was this idea of, are we not doing what we set out to do? So for us as teachers, you know, and the faces behind Book Me Bite Me, our goal was to have a post every Friday based on something that we've read. And
by the way, since Book Me Bite Me has started, we have achieved that goal, and we
Yes.
are this Friday as well, but in a different format.
Exactly, the not giving up format, the presenting something format. So we talked a lot this morning about the idea that we may not have finished a book, but we've been reading the whole week, a lot actually. I mentioned in an earlier about last week's post, if you don't know, or if you are following us and you do know, my mom transitioned to the heavenly realms, as I say, on October 16th. And so life for me has just been a little bit of a lot of an adjustment, and I've had to do a lot of reading. I may not have finished a novel or a short story, as we say in English, from cover to cover, from the front to the end, but I have been reading. Actually, if you've noticed some of our posts, I've been reading. I want to start reading all the books on her nightstand, and one of them is by Amy Carmichael, and it's called Thou Givest, Thou Gather, or They Gather, something like that. And I like that because I feel so connected to her, and I made a moment out of it. I actually read, I read to my dad, with my dad, but to my dad from that book in the mornings. So it's not going to be a book that I finish.
That sunlight.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just gotten bigger.
It's real.
There we go. Well, we don't want to blind our audience. Come on in.
Yeah. And but I have read this week, and I returned back to work this week, so getting into a new pattern, and I've had to do a lot of reading for my dissertation, for work, and for my life, and you too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so this week I've been actually a little bit more on the what am I going to do for my classes side of the reading, where you've been, I feel like, going more inwards and family-oriented reading, if you will. All that to say, I've been reading about the IELTS, so some of you have taken or will take the IELTS. What I was teaching this week was preparing my students for the reading section. So I've been doing a lot of IELTS reading. I haven't been feeling very inspired to write a post about what I have been reading. But like I told my students this week, in doing numerous practice tests, I have gotten better and better myself at taking the IELTS. And one thing that I tell my students is even I, as a native speaker, would never be able to do the 3 readings and answer the questions in the 50 to 60 minute time period that you're given to read, answer the questions, and then fill out the answer key. So one reading takeaway that I've gotten through this week is actually fine-tuning my skimming and scanning techniques. And I don't apply those just to the IELTS test. I apply those to my life as well. So another thing that came up for me this week is my students in my oral communications class were doing debates, and one of the debates was about comedy and free speech. So should there be a limit to what comedians say, or should they be able to make fun of anything, anybody, without limits? And I don't know if you've heard, but there was a big news story this week about a famous comedian who got into some trouble. And I won't say what that is. I'll let you read about it. But the news article notifications started popping up on my cell phone. And so I read the article, and I had to use my skimming and scanning techniques because I wanted to find out what was going on. I thought it would be good information to pass to my students debating about that topic, but the topic was really gross, and I didn't want to read all about it, and I didn't want to know the details, but I still wanted to know the kind of main idea about the story. So for me, the purpose of my reading this week hasn't been about a blog, a post, and reflecting. It's been more my reading skills, my reading techniques.
Yes. I think our main takeaway on this first point for you is that you still can show up. That means be present, even if you're not reaching your goal. Just because you didn't reach your end goal to perfection as you always do, you can still apply yourself. And when you really take a look at what you've done, and if you have been present every single day, you see that you've done a lot. You know, like Mariah has been saying, you know, we've all had to do lots of reading this week, even though it's not our typical one novel, one short story, one poem, and, you know, we share a reflection with you. But I've been, you know, I'm now the chef at home, and my mom was an excellent cook, so I've been reading all of these recipes. And, you know, this morning we talked, does all of this count? Absolutely. I mean, when we say count, let's be real here. You're not in it for a race. You're in it for yourself, right? Your own growth, your own maturity, to see your skills improve. So you're not racing against anyone, you know, it's just you. So worry about your own growth. And if you feel that you've honored that each day and you've shown up as in you came for yourself, then that's the best that you can do, and that's great.
I mean, I want to begin by wrapping this post up. One thing that we as teachers talk about with each other a lot and try to reinforce in our students is this is a journey,
right,
not a destination. And everything that you do each day, the little steps, the little things that you read each day are helping you to reach that long-term goal. But that long-term goal is not going to be achieved tomorrow. And so we want to leave you with a thought that Leslie shared with me this morning. Reading is like breathing.
Yeah.
And I truly, truly honor that and believe that, because if you want to be an educated person and an influential person in this world, breathe in those words.
I want to touch on something that Mariah said earlier. You said it's about the journey and it's not about perfection. And there's a quote that I put up on the board at work this week, and it said, "I will hold myself to a standard of grace and not perfection." Grace means there's room for error, and that's okay.
So with that,
happy reading,
and happy perfecting your journeys.
Amen. Bye.